All right. So today we're going to go over the argumentation essay. So again, right here, and of course, I'm going to provide this all to you as well on Classroom. Here's a good rubric. It's color coded. 7 point essay now. There is no refutation, alternative viewpoint. Basically, you're going to have 3 paragraphs. The first paragraph is just going to be your thesis. That's all you have to have. And again, we talked about that on Tuesday. That is a defensible claim with a line of reasoning. And like I said, I think it's important to have 2 valid points in your line of reasoning. In your first body paragraph, you're going to state one of the core documents or another course document that is relevant to your thesis. Then your B2 point, you're going to basically explain, okay, what is your B1? So let's say I'm using the First Amendment. You're going to explain what is the First Amendment. And then lastly, in B3, you're basically going to explain, okay, now how does this, your B1 and 2 points, relate to your thesis? So how does the, in this example, I'm using the First Amendment. How does the First Amendment relate to your thesis? Then you're going to do it again in your second body paragraph with a different point. Again, as long as you use one of those 3 documents that they provide you, your second point can come from those 3 documents or it can come from another course document. And I want to be specific. This has to be a course document. So we're thinking a Supreme Court case. We're thinking a foundational document or a relevant course concept that would apply to your thesis. So here's a practice argumentation I want to work on today, and I'm going to show you a template, which I really think is good at explaining how it's supposed to be formatted, and we're definitely going to use this in our practices as we get closer to the exam. In an effort to balance free speech rights with the need to create safe learning environments for a diverse group of students, some public universities have established free speech zones on their campuses. Within the zone, students are permitted to protest, post signs, and engage freely in expression of their opinions. Outside the zones, however, students are expected to avoid speech that could be seen as offensive or obscene. Many have criticized these zones for limiting free speech and have called into question the constitutionality of these designated speech zones. So the prompt right here is, this is the prompt right here, okay? It's usually like a 1, maybe 2 sentence basically prompt, and right here it's saying develop an argument either for or against the use of free speech zones on public college campuses, okay? So once I pick my side, and right, it's pretty simple. It gives it to you in the prompt. You're either going to be for free speech zones on college campuses or you're going to be against. Okay, so my 2 points that I'm going to use, one going to be in my B paragraph and one going to be in my C paragraph. One of them has to come from one of these 3 documents, okay? I can use another one for my second point, but I don't have to. I can't double up, so I can't use like the First Amendment twice. But if I wanted to use the First Amendment and the Declaration of Independence, I could. If I wanted to use the Declaration of Independence and maybe a Supreme Court case or another course concept, I could do that as well. So let's look at, I'm going to copy this so I can bring this over to our template. Computer's being slow today. Here we go. All right. So I found this online, and I think this is a really good template for helping you write your thesis, or not really only your thesis, but your essay in general. So we're going to use this. That's not it. We're going to use this when we practice our essays. And really, even if you wanted to, you could use this in your AP test. You just have to copy this over to another document and then turn it in. So the first paragraph right here is going to be my thesis statement, okay? First paragraph, articulate a claim that establishes a defensible argument related to specific uh, situation of the prompt. Okay, and so it kind of has like the equation down here, like what do I need to have? And I color coded it for you right here. You need to have a claim and a line of reasoning, okay? And remember, we're shooting for 2 points in our line of reasoning. We only have 25 minutes, so it'd be difficult to have more than 2, and obviously we have to have 2 points to get our, all of our points in our essay. Here is the one I chose. College campuses that use free speech zones are unconstitutional, okay? So there's my defensible claim, okay? I'm saying that free speech zones on college campuses are unconstitutional because it goes against the First Amendment and it would violate our natural rights, okay? So there's my 2 points in my line of reasoning, all right? That's all I have to have in my first paragraph, done, okay? In my opinion, this is the easiest of the points to get, and it's the most important points to get because really the only points I can get without a thesis statement are my B1 and what they're calling the C1 points, okay? I can't get my B2 or C2 or B3 or C3 points without a thesis statement. So it's very important that I have a thesis statement, and it's very important that my evidence relates to my thesis and my line of reasoning. If it doesn't, then it really doesn't serve any purpose. All right, so now I'm starting my second paragraph. All right, my second paragraph, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to name evidence 1 and address its relevance to your claim. So my first piece of evidence I'm going to use is the First Amendment. The text of the First Amendment, specifically the free speech clause, clearly explains that free speech zones on college campuses would be unconstitutional, okay? So my required document, the First Amendment, even really more specific, the free speech clause, and then I'm connecting it to my theme saying clearly would explain that free speech zones are unconstitutional. Now, in my B2 point, I have to explain basically what the First Amendment is. That's what I'm doing right in here. And to do that, I need to have specific facts. Obviously, there's no really facts on the First Amendment. Quotes, obviously, that's what would apply here, which expand on it. So the free speech clause of the First Amendment is one of the most sacred rights held by citizens in the United States. The free speech clause states that Congress should make no law that bridges the freedom of speech. So I bolded that because that's my quote, okay? That's me demonstrating I understand what is in the First Amendment. And then I kind of just add a little detail right here. It allows them to speak freely on issues without harm or fear of the government coming down on them and abridging their speech. So again, that's all I have to have right there. An important quote that would come from it. Again, I would not, if you use like a Federalist paper, or if you use something like that in your argument, I don't think you have to have like a word for word quote. This is really easy because a free speech clause, it's one sentence. But if you want to say, for instance, you said Fed 10 talks about factions, or Hamilton really speaks against factions and explains their flaws in the democracy, and you kind of provide some examples, that's fine. I'm not saying you need to have specific quotes especially from the Federalist Papers or things like that. Use reasoning to show my B3, so this is my last point. Apply the purpose of presenting obscene or controversial speech out in the public. The free speech clause has been interpreted by the Supreme Court to present danger. Okay, so I'm reading the substance with present danger, or the case I'm just making with present danger precedent. It's hard to argue that people speaking out on college are supposed to represent an area for free to be creating a danger towards the public. So what I've done on here, I've explained, okay, the reason why the First Amendment applies to this question is because the Supreme Court has basically interpreted the First Amendment to protect speech as long as it doesn't, create a and I'm building on that by saying it's really hard to imagine that an individual, speaking out on a college campus creates a clear and present danger towards the public. I've moved on to my second piece of evidence, this evidence I'm using, the Declaration of Independence written by Thomas Jefferson, supports the idea of so that's me, you know, I'm explaining the Declaration of Independence. Their creator, where certain unalienable rights, again, be well constructed from what Jefferson said, and when we are given those rights, we should be able to practice them free in society. States that these are to think that things like liberty, that's where really that infringe upon liberty because it might be obscene or might hurt people's feelings. Clearly, it goes against Jefferson's ideas of natural rights. Then my last point right here, to practice these rights, restricting is what she's saying. These rights lend credit. It'd be hard to imagine Thomas Jefferson or any of the founders today in seeing speech constricted to systems and believing people are freely expressing. If we allow college campuses to curtail, then we have gone away from the idea of justified rights. So the intent of the, you know, talking about our God-given rights and the idea that, you know, we allow the government, and you got to think, allow the government rights, the idea of, you know, natural rights, rights that are given to you once you're born, the government will determine, you know, when these rights are applicable. And that would totally go against the idea of the Declaration of Independence. So that's going to be 25 hours. The time that's why we're going to practice this twice. And I might give you some more practice ones if you want to practice on your own. The goal, obviously, you know, the second time we want to get it closer to 25 minutes, and then, you know, be ready once we get to the exam date to do this in 25 minutes, because that's all you're going to get. All right, I hope everyone is doing good. Tomorrow I'm going to talk about the concept exam, or the concept application FRQ, which is much shorter than this and doesn't involve as many parts. And then next week we're going to start reviewing on Unit 1. Stay safe, everybody.